There are three specific reasons why this is special, and I've written this down. Kim Ayers. Kim Ayers is the director of product operations at DocuSign and works with PMs every single day.
Today, we really position the company as being an intelligent agreement management solution.
Let's dive into the main segment. So somebody is yelling, you are not helping.
Oh, so he comes over and tries to help.
Okay, this one is a bit troll, I think. Can you give us an overview of what is the process of a beta program?
Yeah, for sure. Would it be helpful if I talk through like broader product lifecycle first?
Would you like to talk more about that? How everything at the end of the day or at the end of this year is like connected?
Yeah, for sure. This very much brings me back to, the first few months of first year at Haas.
Do you recommend the workplaces to implement from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's things that are broader national and infrastructure problems.
A buzzword you secretly love.
I will say ownership mindset.
Some of you would like to share about those people who have influence in your career and your growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one leadership lesson that we should take away, like as PM aspirants, early career PM folks, from your experiences?
I would say
Great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Berkeley's Product Management Club podcast. The name is Beyond the Backlog. We are here in episode 3. I'm Devansh, your host, and my co-host Kevin. What's up, Kevin?
All good. I'm feeling really excited for this. Thank you for coming, Kim. We are so glad to have you here.
happy to be here.
I am super excited for this one. This is special because, there are three specific reasons why this is special, and I've written this down. First of all, we are flipping the script. We are getting an inside-out view on product management with somebody who has spoken to like 50 PMs over her career so far and works cross-functionally with a lot of product managers. So it's great to have Kim Ayers. Kim Ayers is the director of product operations at DocuSign and works with PMs every single day. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Amazing.
Welcome, Kim.
Let's get to another point now.
Yeah.
What I have here is that she runs a DocuSign's beta testing program, which is amazing. She sees product at their most critical stage when real users get their hands on them. If you want to understand what separates a good product from a great one, then her insights are going to be gold, especially for our audience who is all early career PMs or aspiring PMs. So tune in for a very exciting episode. And finally, she is an absolute force. She's a mission-driven builder, a true problem solver, and a mom as well. Congratulations on your presidency.
Thank you.
So we get into all of that and we are all ready to be inspired. Kim, welcome again.
Thank you.
We need to mention something else. Kim has lived in Peru for some years. So yeah, she quite knows a lot about my place and also about my food. So I'm really excited to talk about that later on as well.
Yes, definitely. I have a very special place for Peru in my heart.
Oh, so sweet. Great.
So we will perhaps start with a quick background. If you can tell our audience what you do at DocuSign, that will set us a great context, and then we'll dive into some fun memes and get into some rapid fire quizzes. We are excited for this episode.
Yeah, for sure. And would it be helpful if I give a little explanation of what DocuSign does also? Okay.
Sure.
So I mentioned that because DocuSign is often synonymous with e-signature. That's what the company became famous for. That's how we went public. And today, DocuSign does a lot more than that. So while the consumer experience may be, hey, I used DocuSign to sign a form that I otherwise would have had to print out, and I'm so glad that they made that easier. Really, there's a lot more, that we offer at a commercial and enterprise level. So we provide solutions across the full spectrum of creating, committing on, and managing agreements. So agreements, contracts, anything like that. So today, we really position the company as being an intelligent agreement management solution. So there's so much data and insights and opportunity locked away in PDFs when you make contracts, especially in a B2B context. So, imagine like payment terms, what happens if something fails, all of these things. Just as one example, how do you extract that information and be able to really know, are your suppliers holding up their commitments? Are you getting yourself in any trouble, and be able to act proactively there? So we've measured that it's a $2 trillion annual loss in productivity that is locked away in this sort of agreement trap. And that's what we're looking to solve today.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure. And
Documents, I guess, is something that humans are not really good at, right? Reading a fine print and getting into everything that can go wrong.
yeah, and I mean, we're in the world of AI now, right? So like there's so much that can be extracted quickly from all of that legalese text that is in agreements and can be turned into action and can be turned into business value and, when we're working with nonprofits and governments, into, value for their stakeholders as well.
Amazing. We are so excited that we'll get to learn about more how AI is used in this legalese world. And even before we get into that, there are certain perceptions out there about product managers. As somebody who is a cross-functional leader who interacts with product managers, would love to get your reaction on our meme reviews section.
Oh boy. Okay.
Let's dive into the main segment. All right, here we are, ready for the meme number one. Play.
No. I have no technical ability.
So what are you being paid for?
The confidence that I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel. No. No technical ability.
Is that true?
What do you think about that, Kim?
I don't know. I'll be nice to PMs here. I'll say I don't think that's true. I see PMs losing a lot of sleep over trying to get their releases done and, like wrangling everybody together, herding the cats. So no, I think PMs do a lot more than just have feelings on the products. Yeah.
He has become the face of vibe. Don't know why he didn't say the term vibe coding, but he just looks like a vibe coder.
Yeah.
He was pretty famous before,
Yeah.
He coaches like a lot of artists and singers and performers.
Yes. So let's go into the next one.
Oh no.
So this guy,
So somebody is yelling, you are not helping.
Oh, so he comes over and tries to help and everything. He falls apart.
He's the owner, he's gluing everything together
Okay.
and things fall apart without him.
Things fall apart without him. I see. Yeah. Yeah. See, I feel like that one could be interpreted two ways. One would be like, things fall apart without him. The other one would be, engineers think that they've built something perfect and no one should touch it. And the PM is like, hey, this isn't really what we need. We got to rebuild this. And they're like, oh no, this is going to break everything. So I'll again defend the PMs there and say, sometimes they make the engineers' lives harder, but it's usually in the interest of the customer. So
Absolutely. I actually picked this to show that he's a good guy, but yeah, there are always ways to
yeah,
make things go wrong. Okay, this one is a bit troll, I think.
this really could be true. Yeah. I see them try to push back on deadlines, but in the end, sometimes there's not much you can do, and it's true that the fingers on keyboards are going to be the engineers. So sorry.
yeah, no, it happens.
This one is for you. You will spot beta testing there.
MVP, products goal, market needs. Yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah, it definitely goes through a lot of different versions and it can feel very Frankenstein in the beta stage. So it's not pretty. Sometimes it's held together with duct tape, but the idea is you get some valuable learnings from it and end up delivering something that is going to be valuable to your customer in the end.
I am curious what happened here. Like if you see, there's a post beta update and then there's a launch product. Is this accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that could be if you if there's things that you end up saying, hey, it's not going to be ready during beta, but it's going to go into the GA release, and you don't test those things. And so then your GA product is drastically different from what you've tested, and it's kind of a surprise to everybody. So build in time to iterate and test what you have built during the beta phase too.
When you say GA product, is that final delivery?
Apologies, yes. So we use the term GA to refer to either general availability or global availability.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like the real official release.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like pushing it to prod is
Yes.
J's?
Yeah, generally.
So it could be that you decided like a final product to look like this, like after the beta, but then when the time comes to launch it, there are probably some resources not available, and maybe the final product doesn't look like the final that you decided.
Yeah, I mean, it can be like, hey, we thought that there were 5 features that were really critical to customers. So that's what we went to the beta release with.
Okay.
And then we learned that really there's 3 more things that really have to be there in order for this to be valuable. And leadership's like, yeah, we don't have more time to like test those things though. Like we've committed now publicly that we're gonna, release this on this date to production and to general availability. So we're gonna see how those things come together. That's how we end up doing a lot of internal testing in situations like that to try to de-risk it.
I see.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm assuming this is a common occurrence that you are pushed against deadlines, that this is the launch and work backwards.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I am trying to put a lot of focus on this year, which is the key to success of any launch is effective planning and building in time for the unexpected. I do
Buffers.
buffers for
Yeah.
sure. And just being realistic, I think the work that is required to run a beta is often underestimated, especially in a B2B context, because it's not as easy as flipping a switch and people start using it. It takes time to recruit customers. It takes time to get them engaged. It takes time to get their feedback. It takes time to make decisions based off of what you synthesize from their feedback. So if you don't build in that time, then you're really putting the whole release at risk.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can you give us an overview of what is the process of a beta program? Very high level overview so that we understand the stages.
Yeah, for sure. Would it be helpful if I talk through like broader product lifecycle first?
Maybe one example that would be even better. if
Yeah.
you have it.
Sure. So my team operates within product operations, and then I've sort of named my team beta operations. So we govern our overall product lifecycle. That's our function, and those defined phases of our product lifecycle include, and this is pretty industry standard, so I'll just use sort of general terms, but there's a concept phase, and that's very much like, hey, what do we think would be valuable? What's our hypothesis here on like what we need to build and what we should prioritize? And once you have alignment on that and you have a business case for it, then you may move into building something, right? And so you get to a certain point of building, and hopefully you've thought up front about whether this is something that is important enough and risky enough that you need to build in time to really do a full beta phase of testing on this. So you build it, you test it. So my phase is really the testing. And then all of that is pre-release. And you can, you can call the testing phase like your beta release if it's, with external customers and they're working in live code. And then you get to post-release. So you go to general availability or limited availability, whatever it is. And we also look at what the performance is of the product post-release. Where are we seeing success? What kinds of customers? What are the major objections? If it's something that we're selling and it's not just integrated feature, then what are the objections that sales are getting from customers? And where is this not lining up? So
Okay. So it could be like, could be like a release that is not massively released to every customer, just upset the population. So in order like you can.
Limited availability.
Okay.
yeah, and one of the questions I get a lot from PMs is how to decide when you're building something whether your next step is to beta test it or it's to go to limited availability. Basically, I come back to a pretty easy framework that our product experience and customer experience team has developed that I really like, which is before you release something. And when I say release, I mean like what the pricing and packaging is, if you're monetizing it or not, that kind of thing. And so if you're monetizing it, there's a SKU, like all of that is done. Before you do that, you should know, does this work well? Like, is it usable? Is it useful to my customers? Enough that they can actually drive business value out of this? And are they satisfied with the overall experience? So those are the 3 elements that we always look at.
So does it work well? Is it useful?
And customer satisfaction. So are they...
And you measure every
experience.
metric based on
We do.
this framework.
Yes.
All right.
I just have a quick question. What's the difference between beta testing and limited availability? Because you mentioned those as different things.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, when a PM comes to me and says, hey, I'm not sure I have the time to run a beta test, I just want to push this to limited availability. I ask them questions around those three elements. So I say, do you know how usable it is? Do you have any, what evidence do you have that if you give someone instructions on what a certain task is that they need to do with this product, that they can actually get to that end goal and they can achieve that job to be done? Like, do you have evidence of that? Do you have evidence of that this is going to be useful to your target market, that it drives actual business value for them? Can you speak to that? Are you ready to tell a customer story about that? And then overall satisfaction, how many customers have you tested this out with, whether formally part of a beta program or not? And so I like to ask these kinds of questions to help them make their own decision around, is this ready to really be a full-fledged, marketing supported, release that we're setting a standard here, saying, this is there's a whole legal side to this, right? Like, this is covered by our master service level agreements. We have certain guarantees around product functionality. Are you ready to commit it to that? Or do we need to have a beta release here and say, hey, we're still working out the kinks. We still have things to learn, and, come help us develop that and make this useful for customers like yourself.
Do you think that this process has become standardized over time, or is it still very iterative in terms of at least how the beta program will run and how the release will happen?
Yeah, I think we've made a lot of progress. So we've developed a pretty successful and repeatable formula for how to plan for and recruit customers, especially commercial customers, to betas. And I think what's interesting is when I was building this program, I tried to look around for industry best practices. How do other companies do it? And it's really hard to find information on how other B2B companies do this. There's a lot in the world of B2C, right? Like, anybody who has a Gmail account, they know you can go in and look at Google Labs and turn on whatever feature you want. It's really easy when it's a consumer-facing thing, because it's one person who's making a decision about themselves. That's not the case in business. So you have lawyers, you have compliance people, you have security people, you have the business user, you have the developer. And so it gets a lot more complex.
I guess I heard this somewhere. B2C products are built for impulse, like consumers have impulse and they make decisions which may not be rational. But B2B is very super calculated. This is the best product for this use case, and here's why.
Yeah. And I mean, we have a lot of financial services customers, we have government customers, we have, folks who work in highly regulated industries. And so wherever there's high regulation, they're going to be really careful about what they start using and how they change their processes and how their data is used. So we have to be really careful about how we engage with them and, what guarantees we can give them.
It's amazing. Thanks a lot, Kim. That's a great slice from your world.
Sure. Thank you.
We will move on to our next segment now.
Yeah.
Kevin, over to you.
So we're moving to this part. So to talk more about your roots in social impact, Kim. So you started in the nonprofit world, in working in Peace Corps in Peru, and then pivoting into consulting later on, and then to tech and leadership. So I'm curious to know, how did those experiences shape your career overall? Would you like to talk more about that? How everything at the end of the day, or at the end of this year, is connected?
Yeah, for sure. This very much brings me back to, the first few months of first year at Haas with, the circles of death in recruiting events, and trying to figure out what's my quick little summary of who I am, what my experience is, and where I'm going with this. And it's hard when you come in from one background, in my case, more social impact, and then you're trying to make a pivot towards business. Like, what's the connection here? So what I found over time, and, thank you for helping me develop this story, is I've always been really passionate about people and about performance. And so basically enabling people to reach their full potential, breaking down barriers. And that work started very much on the social impact side for me. So in college, I read a book called The End of Poverty by Jeffrey Sachs. It really inspired me to think that I could go out and solve poverty in the world. I, grew up in a fairly privileged background where, the positive side of that was my my two psychologist parents really gave me the belief that I could do anything I set my mind to. And the negative side of that is I grew up in a bubble in many ways. And so when I began understanding the realities of global poverty, I really wanted to just embed myself in that and understand the experience and understand how to solve this. And so that's how I joined the Peace Corps, a US government program that sends people to, rural, semi-rural parts of the world. And that's how I landed in Peru, in northern Peru, and had a great time there. So I worked a lot with small businesses, with artisans, with youth who were interested in learning how to start their own businesses, folks creating savings and credit groups. And I realized that I was really passionate about job creation and just giving people the power to have the economic stability to really improve their own lives. So got passionate about job creation, moved into a nonprofit called Endeavor that in the day-to-day, it's really like a Y Combinator for emerging markets. It's an accelerator of startups. But there was a social mission behind it, which was, let's work in emerging markets where we want to support the job creators and create more of a stable middle class, have more high quality jobs. And in that experience, I realized that the day-to-day of business strategy was something that could bring me a lot of satisfaction too. And that was surprising to me since I thought I came from, just social impact work. Like now I'm going to go, make a profit and, support businesses. But in the end, businesses employ people and I want those people to have high quality jobs and be able to, stay where they are and be close to their families and all of that. So I enjoyed that at Endeavor and got to a point where I was working with amazing advisors to these entrepreneurs and, coming from all kinds of expertise across different functions. And I was like, I don't want to be the person who's just bringing these people together anymore. I want to be able to have that expertise myself. And so that's what brought me to Haas.
Wow, there are so many bits in that story that I can relate to myself personally. Like I come from a non-profit background. I worked at World Economic Forum. I was advising startups how to work in GovTech, how you can do something in agriculture and healthcare. In all of this, entrepreneurs need a lot of help, and generally sales cycles are also pretty long. Funding in general is dried out. So you can either empower others or you become owners kind of and start your own products. You see the problems, you can build your own products around them. That's my narrative generally, how I say that, okay, I want to have from social impact to product management, and enabling people has always been the main thread, regardless of you're in the public sector, private sector. So
I was researching about Kim's work, and there is an article published by Haas, and there is a really beautiful phrase that she mentioned that from they do that to I want to do that as well. So it's pretty powerful. I read that and I put that also in the script in the topics because I felt that it's pretty strong and it speaks a lot about what you are sharing today.
Thank you. Yeah, Haas and my steps after that in terms of career were amazing for being able to build that confidence that not only can I bring other people together, but I can really be that expert resource myself. So that's been a wonderful journey.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Kim. So I would like to talk about like the second part, because you mentioned like, hey, you came to Haas. There was a huge motivation behind that of doing the things by yourself, learning about business. And I'm also curious to know what happened there, because then later on you move into consulting, McKinsey, and then into tech. So curious to know about the second part of the history here.
Yeah, it is a funny sort of move to go from, supporting micro entrepreneurs and like really being focused on ending poverty to work at McKinsey.
Fortune 500 club.
Yes. And I will say there are a lot of really purpose-driven people at McKinsey and they do a great job, in recruiting a lot of those folks from the MBA, right? Like there's so many veterans and former teachers and, folks who come from nonprofit. So a lot of times we bring the people skills to the consulting, we know how to develop trust, we know how to develop relationships. And then the analysts come in with all of the modeling chops and we have to, both learn from each other in those ways. But I came into Haas knowing that I wanted to make a move into private sector, that I was feeling more purpose around day-to-day work that may be about business. And I wanted to learn these sort of elusive best practices, like what are the best practices? What are the companies that like have really figured it out, and how do they do things? And, how can I bring that knowledge to other companies and to other contexts? So I did explore other career paths while I was at Haas, but ended up deciding that the best choice for me would be to go into consulting and just get like the full toolkit, be able to work with some of the biggest companies so that I could bring that knowledge more to mid-sized companies or wherever I wanted to go after that. And I said I would stay there as long as I was happy. I didn't have a specific timeline on it. I did learn over time that client service is a special kind of work that has a certain kind of pressure that is always going to be there. And I thought about going towards an internal role at McKinsey, but I realized that even in an internal role, you're still working in client service. And I kind of came to a moment of clarity thanks to my husband, who's Chilean and, has some great phrases that don't fully translate sometimes, but he's always been like my cable tierra. So he is, he's incredibly grounded in what's important in life. And he never let me lose perspective on what life was like outside of consulting. So, he was the one who would call out, like, this isn't normal, Kim. There are people who can make dinner plans during the week and keep them. I know that you can't right now, but, it would be nice if you could. So I got to that realization myself of, I want to be able to have a little bit more predictability in my life and my schedule. And I was ready to move into an operating role. I really loved all of the quick iterations of different projects in consulting. So getting to see a lot of different companies, a lot of different challenges, and get to see a lot of different managers, which was really cool. So being able to sort of pick and choose from, I really liked how this person ran the team. I really liked, this aspect of what they really emphasized in terms of how to bring value to the client, and, sort of jumble that all together in what I wanted my leadership style to be. So I was ready to try that out myself in an operating role.
Ready to move from chasing elusive best practices to practicing best practices.
Yeah.
That journey is transformative.
Yeah. And, it's really funny. I remember being in Haas and being like, I just want to learn all the frameworks, And I'm sorry to burst everyone's bubble, but like, there's no like perfect framework for all the business challenges you're going to find. But I did learn to have that intuition of how to come into an ambiguous situation and just put some quick structure around it. And, that can be a framework that looks mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, MECE. And that does actually really help in an operating role. There's a lot of folks who need that kind of complement and support, and I enjoy bringing that.
Great. So that is the phase of McKinsey. Then the next phase of becoming an operator. What really got you excited about DocuSign, and how has been the experience been so far?
Yeah. So as someone who came from a social impact background, purpose and mission and impact in the world is really important to me. So I knew that I was going to be the type of person who was probably going to have a wish list or run my own recruiting process sort of company first. And I think that's not always the right choice for everybody. It depends on what you're really optimizing for. But I know that in order to do my best work, I have to really believe in what the company's doing. So I sort of had a short list of companies that I believed were making a net positive impact on the world. They didn't have to be B Corps. They didn't have to be like certified that they were doing that. That's nice. But I also wanted to work in fintech or in clean tech or really any company like that. So DocuSign for, the impact that it has on accessible government services, financial services, of just making, complicated paper-heavy processes more simple and a better customer experience, and allowing folks to move forward in their agreements more quickly. I was excited about that, and sort of the opportunity to support governments and financial institutions in increasing their reach digitally. So that's what brought me to DocuSign. And I've had a couple different roles in my time there. That's been almost 5 years now. So I've had a bit of a journey within DocuSign myself.
And then this very amazing opportunity of building betas at DocuSign came around. You have mentioned about it just before in terms of the product lifecycle. But would you like to share something more interesting about what is it like to run the program?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about how it was born. And for context, I, without knowing it, I think was working in different kinds of product operations without having that title for a number of years at DocuSign. So I started in sort of post-release analysis of how our products were performing in market, especially, I mentioned that DocuSign is really well known for e-signature, and 5 years ago, that was the vast majority of our actual sales and our product portfolio. And we were really trying to grow the others. So I had a lot of focus on understanding the growth trends of our other products and what we could do to accelerate that trend and that growth. Then I started moving more into pre-release. So I was working, and all of this, I was under the title of sales operations, actually, but it really was product operations in the day-to-day. So I was making sure that from a sales operations perspective, we were ready to release something as a new product. So there's a lot that goes into that isn't necessarily a core part of the PM job, right? Like is the field enabled and ready to sell this product or to make it a part of their pitch about an existing product or a full solution that we have? Are the right incentives in place? If this is harder to sell than one of our simpler products, how are we making sure that our fields and sales teams are actually interested in going out and doing that extra work to sell this? So I did a lot of that, and basically this was all in the context of the pandemic, right? I started in 2020, and we were a rocket ship for we were a pandemic darling. And we got to a point around 2022 that a lot of companies did, like Zoom and others of the pandemic, that investors started asking, how long is this growth going to keep up? And what's your plan to keep this growth up? And, you've been hiring like crazy. What's going to happen in terms of profitability? And our leadership didn't give convincing enough answers. And there was a full turnaround of the company with all new executive team. And so, yeah, we had a full change of the guard. And the new guard that came in was really excited about, like, what's the next chapter of growth for DocuSign? So they really, and I'm talking our executive team, like really sat down and whiteboarded, like, what is the opportunity here that is going to be our next phase of growth? And from that whiteboard, they handed off these ideas to our product team and basically said, go build this. And this was really about like extracting data and value out of agreements and out of contracts. And it hit perfectly with the timing of AI boom. And they were able to, get huge new offerings built in about 3 months. And at that point, I was brought in to say, okay, we now need customers to go test this. How do we actually get them to do this on a really tight timeline? Because we had a really big marketing event coming up in May, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to take advantage of that moment to launch this whole new offering. And we were really trying to like change the whole category and market in which we operated.
Like, it sounds like a perfect hero arc story, that there was lots of confusion, leadership was ambiguous. How did you happen to be at the right spot at the right time in terms of career success? How did you make that happen for yourself, that I am in the middle of the storm and I know what's the right thing to do here? How did you get yourself in that spot?
Yeah. So I think because I was I have operated for a while at DocuSign as one of few people who really understood both the product and the go-to-market side and how to bring those together. And so when our leadership team, handed off the whiteboarding session, got the basic new offerings built in 3 months, the question was now, how do we actually get customers to test this out? And the VP of sales operations was like, well, I think Kim is the right person to ask about that. She's the only one who knows about product incentives. So I got brought in. I used my understanding of incentives for new product launches to try to figure out how to get the right field teams, so sales development, success, all of those folks, how to get them enabled, how to get them incentivized, and how to get customers testing. It was quite an adventure because it was really the first time that we were doing that on a huge scale. We were trying to get like 200 customers to test this within a period of 3 months. And, when I say test, I mean recruit them, onboard them, get their feedback, synthesize their feedback, and, iterate on the actual product to support the launch. So it was a very tight timeline, and we learned a lot and basically said that was exhilarating. We should do more testing like that at that scale, but we can never do it that way again. It was very, very scrappy. So let's put in place an actual program to do this in a sustainable way.
And you knew what levers to pull because you were yourself in sales operation earlier. So you knew what incentives they would want so that things move faster, perhaps?
I did. And, the thing is with reaching customers, generally, you have high touch ways to do that and low touch ways to do that. So we started out just because of where we were at the time, really going through those high touch, field and sales team focused routes. And over time, we have gotten much better at utilizing the lower touch and product led ways to reach our customers. So now we do a lot more in product communication. So, you're exploring a certain part of the product, and that suggests that you would be interested in exploring and being a part of a beta for this next feature that supports that. So being able to expose that in product, having better contact level targeting of emails to recruit customers. So yes, my sales background helped a lot in terms of my understanding of, I would honestly say deal cycle was the big perspective that I brought, because I think product managers underestimate the amount of time it takes to get from I launched a product to actually getting customers to use it. There are steps to that process of recruiting customers into a beta that is very similar to a sales process. And so I always bring that lens to say, hey, if you want to have 30 customers providing feedback at the end, that means you have to have thousands that are your target market that you are sending emails to. If you start out and you're like, no, I only need 30, I'm just going to email 30 people, and no, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. Unless these are your best friends, it's going to be really hard. So, I brought perspective of conversion funnel of just each step. What is it going to take to take steps out of the process to make this much faster and be able to increase our sort of recruitment conversion, but also be realistic about how much time it's going to take to achieve the results that you want.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing about betas and the whole journey of making a scrappy process, a sustainable process over time. And I want to talk about, sustainability more.
Yeah.
We were able to, manage this because you have led teams while pregnant and also parenting. So I'm curious to know, what should we know about that journey, and what do you want workplace to change?
Yeah, first I have to say I'm really thankful to work in the industry and the company that I do, because I'm in a very family-friendly environment. So I have a great leave program, and I generally feel very comfortable showing up to work as the full person that I am. A lot of the small talk before meetings is about how my son is doing, how other people's kids are doing. There's a lot of compassion and understanding when kids are sick or during spring break or whatever, and they have to be around, and, you have to cancel some calls and that kind of thing. So I'm really lucky. I wish that everybody in the US and the world was that lucky. And navigating personally the experience now of having a almost 4-year-old, and I'm pregnant with my second. So, I think being a mom has made me a better person and a better leader in ways that I maybe didn't expect. I think there's nothing like having a bright-eyed little kid smile at you, 5:30 p.m. and say like, "Hey mom, want to come play with me?" to really make you realize what's important in life and how you want to prioritize your time. And so having him around really makes me be super careful about using my time efficiently. So I think it's made me a better leader because I'm ruthless about simplifying things. So, instead of preparing a whole deck for a conversation with an important executive, maybe I'll just like be super sure that I have the bullets written down of what I want to say and that I'm going to be super straightforward in this, 20-minute conversation. And I think, that ends up having knock-on benefits because that exec didn't want a deck either. They also just wanted to have a conversation. So I think in ways like that, I'm able to help others have a more sustainable, work-life balance, and it makes me more effective. So I am very thankful the experience of parenthood for that.
Yeah, I think as students, we have a lot to learn. That empathy for other employees who have other commitments. And although we are driven because we are young and full of energy, we should have our empathy for how others are going to react to that environment.
I mean, that was me too. When I was early on in my career, I remember, seeing parents leave the office at like 4 p.m. and, grumbling a little bit. And I was like, why do they get to do that, But the reality is, especially now in hybrid work environments and all of that, it's really about like, are you getting the job done and are you fulfilling your commitments? And you may do that in a off schedule that's different than what a traditional workday looks like. But, that's the way we operate today. And I do think it's hard to imagine when you're at Haas because you're in a 100% or very highly focused career period. You're like, what do I want to do next? I am investing time and a lot of money into my career right now. And so I have to get like all of the ROI here, right? Like I am just going to be gunning it for the next couple of years. And I'll tell you, I graduated in 2018. When we did our 5-year reunion, our class looks a lot different now than we did when we graduated. There's a lot of little kids running around. There's a lot of people who switched careers. They left the job that they got into right after graduation. And the things that we optimize for now are different, 5, 6, 7 years out from Haas.
Interesting.
And I'll say, it doesn't mean I don't have to sprint sometimes. Like sustainability it's the long-term game. It's like, can I keep this up for years? And so there are times with important releases or important executive updates that, I have to work late into the night or I have to pick something back up over the weekend. But that's probably because I dedicated a block of time to being with my son after he came home from school and I got to do bath time and I got to put him to bed. So you make it work. And I'm also really lucky to have a very supportive partner who's an incredible dad. And so we're able to, share that work.
I strongly believe that constraints like force creativity, force productivity, Pareto law, Parkinson law, forcing yourself to work in just, it's like fixed time or amount of time. I think it also drives a lot of creativity.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
As students, we end up studying for exams one night before. If we can bring that mindset to work, especially time boxing things, then they don't have to be time box. You can push yourself
For sure.
for sprints.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable, but it's required when you need some flexibility in your work balance.
Yeah, time boxing for sure. And always it's similar to the philosophy of testing new products, right? Like always getting feedback early, I think saves you a lot of time and effort. So, having just a really basic bulleted list, there's ideas of what you want to put into an eventual exec presentation and running that by a couple of teammates or your manager before you actually spend all the time to build out that deck. That can save you a lot of cycles. So yeah, I think time boxing and, getting early feedback are keys to that.
This is like the way you follow for products that is not a grand launch, but you first do testing. For every messaging that you do to your executives or your stakeholders, you can do some pre-socialization so that everybody already knows what you're going to pitch. It's never a grand surprise. It's never, oh, where did this come from?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this is where some of the social impact background actually is supportive too, because I think I have a deep understanding of how to develop trust and relationships with people. And so, the amount of pre-work and pre-socialization of content or recommendations or decisions that need to go into a presentation before it goes to a senior exec is really important when you're working cross-functionally, because there can be a release that's really sensitive, or people have different opinions on how well it's going, and you really want to make sure that everyone feels like you have heard them and you've taken the time to integrate their perspective before you present something on their behalf to a senior leader.
I have a good question about the topic about parenting.
Yeah.
Is related to basically the backup support or maybe some like leave policies. What would you have loved to have, or maybe what would you recommend the workplaces to implement from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's things that are broader, national and infrastructure problems. And then there are things that companies can do and individual, parents and partners can do too, right? So in the broader context, I wish that there was more affordable childcare. I wish there was more backup care options. One of the great things that DocuSign does is they give us a number of subsidized backup care days. So if my son is on spring break, or if, there's another reason that his general care is not available, then I can get some subsidy of that. So I really appreciate that. And I've always been a strong believer that actually the way that our culture is going to change around expectations of moms versus dads is not only focused on what women need to do and, women being able to get more advanced in the workplace. It's actually men stepping up in a fatherhood role as well, right? So, there's a lot of structural reasons, especially in terms of the different amount of leave that women and men can get, that often dads are not taking as much time as women. So I personally, and this is, just me, I really wish that most companies would have equal leave policies for men and women. Again, we're in a very privileged area where we are at tech companies that tend to have, good benefits, but I would hope for like 3 months, maybe even 4 months for anybody. And that's your bonding time as a parent, right? And that everyone takes that or as much of it as they can. You can break it up if you need to. But, childcare is expensive. So that gets you, if both partners have that gets you 8 months or 6 months of full-time, care for your infant. And, there's also like disability time that birthing mothers get that can be additional to that, because there's those two parts of the new parent experience. There's the actual disability when you give birth, and then there's the bonding time, and everyone should be able to have that bonding time, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Kim. Any final words on this topic?
Yeah, I will just say, dads, please take your parent leave time, please, because I think it's a really special opportunity to be the primary caregiver and really develop that relationship with your kid. And it's incredibly supportive to, partners. If we're talking a mother and father here, then for the mother to know that her partner has also experienced the same and is, making those same pauses in their career to dedicate that time to family.
Great, Kim. Now we're moving into some hot takes about some topics. So Let's talk about your takes on product and customer centricity. What do you think about that? Do you have any hot take on that topic?
Yeah. So I have always loved the topic of like customer experience, customer centricity. It's a very human topic. So of course it resonates with me. And I get afraid that sometimes it's a lot of lip service and that the right culture and structure and resources are not in place to really listen to your customers in a product world. So when you listen to customers, sometimes they'll tell you things that you don't like or don't already fit into your plan. And in those cases, if your company or your team is really customer centric, then you'll take the weight of that feedback and really think about what that means for your roadmap, what that means for your priorities, or how much value a certain release is going to deliver. And those can be hard things to confront, but in the end, you're going to be more successful if you really do listen to your customers that way.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Kim. And would you like to share any other hot take?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll say a generalist skill set is underrated. That's something that I really struggled with in terms of being in the MBA, going into consulting and being like, am I just, what am I an expert at? I want to be an expert in something. And in the end, what I am is a very versatile strategy and operations person. And I work really well cross-functionally because of that. And it also means you can plug me into any challenge that is really rough and there's not a clear path forward. And I can be trusted to figure out what the real root of the problem is and how to solve it. So it took me a long time to feel confident in that being my skill set and being able to really own that, because I wanted to be able to put myself in a box and say, I'm a product marketing manager, or I'm a product manager, or I'm really good at financial modeling, or whatever it is. But the truth is, I know enough to be dangerous in pretty much any area, but I'm not going to be able to do a lot of the execution myself. And that is something that I leverage in terms of, bringing together cross-functional teams to get big issues resolved.
The way I would see it is like you are a generalist and you are an expert in solving ambiguity.
Yeah.
Once it is ambiguous, the experts will take over on the execution side.
Yeah, I'm actually going through this right now in an area where I feel like I'm very much out of my technical depth, but in some ways that helps me just ask the high-level questions that need to be asked and let the technical folks handle the details. Related to our demo environment where we do a lot of our testing and, when internal customers get access, when external customers get access. And internal, I mean, internal users who can really help us test something in a very early phase. So the details of provisioning and the details of how we ramp accounts in the environment is way beyond my depth.
Great. We will keep on building on this hot takes attitude. I really like it. And challenging the status quo. Hasis.
Yes.
We'll get into the rapid fire section now where we fire some quick questions and move through this very quickly.
Sure.
This one is the first one in your arena. You can only beta test one thing in life outside of work. So it's not DocuSign anymore.
Yeah.
What are you experimenting with?
I am trying to figure out how to channel my do-gooder energy into something in Oakland. So I'm trying out a bunch of different ways to be involved in community organizing or volunteering or local government. And I'm experimenting a lot with that. So it's kind of like finding product market fit between the need and my skill set.
Awesome. So the passion remains.
Yes.
Although you are focused in the private side, there are things that matter to you.
For sure.
Next one, a buzzword you secretly love.
I will say ownership mindset. And that is something that's talked about a lot at McKinsey. And I have carried it with me since then, since I left in 2020. So I like it because it speaks to the kind of energy that I like to bring to work and that I like to see in the teams that I work with in terms of, what you're trying to deliver is not just about your individual tasks. It's about an eventual goal and impact. So being able to see where there may be gaps between your work and someone else's work, and hey, nobody owns this other thing that needs to come together in order for us to actually deliver on this whole outcome. So I continue to talk a lot about ownership mindset, and it may sound buzzword like, but I find I don't have a different way to describe the idea.
Giving yourself guardrails that I have to own the outcome and do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as you get more and more senior, you're expected not to just deliver a task, you're expected to deliver an outcome. So it's on you, and it's on everybody who's involved to make sure that you're seeing what the risks are, what the gaps are, and you may not need to be the person who solves it, but you need to be the person who sees it and who says something about it.
Great. And building on your senior role, how would you describe your leadership style in one word?
I would probably say passionate, because I can't help it. I am a people person. I come from a very purpose-driven background, so I can really only get energized about work that I believe in. And that means that I can often be a pretty passionate advocate for our customers, for my team members, for, how we need to achieve the goals of a certain project. I think that shows up in a lot of different ways, which, can be a double-edged sword.
Great. If you could steal one superpower from any of your favorite managers, what would it be?
I wish I was funnier.
I think you're funny. I'm having fun.
I agree. I totally agree.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I wish I'd taken more improv classes when I was at Haas. I think that is a really underrated leadership ability, because, you're always going to encounter questions you weren't prepared for or situations that you weren't prepared for, and being able to react in a way that is authentic and also, shows some confidence, even if you don't have the answer in the moment, I think is really important. And honestly, it's something I get a lot from my experience in Latin America too. My husband being Chilean and having worked in Chile for 3 years, it's a big part of the culture to sort of call things out in a funny way. Maybe someone says an inappropriate comment, or they are getting really riled up about something, and you want to find a way to sort of break the tension in the room. I really appreciated how Chileans, and I'm curious if from your home countries you think that it's the same there, but humor is used really effectively to break that tension. And I want to develop that ability too.
Yeah, definitely that happens in the workplaces improve for sure. Because usually people can forget like many things, but there is always someone who kind of breaks the tension and makes things more.
And especially as leaders, when they do that, it really calms everybody, and then you can feel like you belong.
Yeah, that breaks the ice.
Yeah,
At the end of the day.
exactly.
Great. Another one. So how do you pitch your ideas? Like, what's your go-to format? Is it a deck? Is it a memo or a Figma prototype? How do you communicate your ideas?
Yeah, I think starting as basic and scrappy as possible. So whether it's a couple of bullets or a whole memo would be how I communicate ideas. Like any recovering consultant, I do really love decks. So when it comes time to present something polished, I do love decks.
Okay, great answer. Now, what kind of a person are you? Love to move fast, or do you think deep? I think you're scrappy, so I know your answer, but go for it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll surprise you. I really can't help but think deep. I was a philosophy double major, a whole big picture piece, right? Like with ownership mindset too. I enjoy thinking deep, but unfortunately you got to think deep and then you have to move fast right after that. So but I think it's important to think deep.
To switch gears.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I think I want to ask this last one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because this is a real $1 million question, Kim. Since you've lived in Peru and Chile, so what would you say about the pisco, which is a national drink of a country? But wait, would you say the pisco is Peruvian or Chilean?
Pisco es peruano.
Oh yeah,
It's definitely Peruvian, but Chileans drink a lot more pisco, a lot more than
I
Peruvian.
totally agree. Piscola is quite popular in parties and pubs and everywhere. We usually drink pisco in cocktails,
Yeah.
or where we are also doing some shots, which is it's a hard liquor, but it's not like a liquor that you drink like frequently as Chileans do, for sure.
Yeah.
I've tested myself. All the Latino birthday parties, there has to be pisco. If there's a Laba event, there has to be pisco.
That's right.
Yeah, fun fact, he was drinking pisco last Thursday in Gonzalo's party, which is a Peruvian folk from them.
I'm glad you've been inducted into the world of
Oh yeah,
pisco.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I am definitely signed up for the Peruvian trek as well. I want more.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Kim. Thanks, Kim. You have shared a lot about leadership, mentorship, and what it means for you to grow, to make others grow. So I don't know if you would like to share about those people who have influence in your career and your growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at McKinsey, I was very thankful to have sort of rapid cycles of seeing lots of different management styles. So there was a lot I learned from there. And then once I got to DocuSign, there are a couple people that come to mind right away in terms of role models that I've been able to see in the day to day and, over a longer period of time. So one of those people is named Brandon. He was my manager for a number of years, and he was an incredible version of a just really strong coach. So he really was a role model for me in terms of, as you get more senior as a leader, you need to make sure that you're enabling your team to come up with the answers themselves, that they're not relying on you to have the answers or to guide them in every decision. So he would ask a lot of just open questions to me in terms of, what do you think the best approach is here? Or I'd really like to get your thoughts on this. And he really used me as a thought partner. And that it was really through him that I developed the confidence to feel like I could come into a room and have a strong perspective, because he gave me the space to develop that perspective.
And I think as you grow older, the that is really important to have a point of view on everything, right? If you don't have a point of view, then you are just going with the flow.
Yes and no. I think it's really important to have a point of view, but you have to make sure that you're not diminishing others in the way that you deliver that. So it's important to have conviction when you're, in a room of senior leaders and you're being asked for your perspective. But I think when you're working to develop talent within a team, I will, reference my teammate Krista, who introduced me to a phrase from the book Multipliers, which unfortunately I haven't read yet, but it's still influenced my style a lot, because she told me about accidentally diminishing tendencies. And so to me, it's, things that someone who has been trained to have a really strong perspective, like I was in consulting, can do that end up making other people feel smaller or not as enabled to speak up at the table. So I've had to learn to be careful about not being the first person to speak, whether that's over a Slack communication or whether that's in a meeting, making sure that I pause and give people who are more junior to me or, who are newer to the company, give them time to develop their own answer and think about their response before I jump in with an answer. And the same for, being like an idea fountain. Like if there's a problem and someone comes to me with that problem, not being immediately the person to say, oh, here's how you solve it. It's A, B, and C, letting them develop that answer themselves. That's how we're actually going to develop a stronger team over time.
Awesome. I love this because I think it showcases that sometimes the intention and the outcome are not aligned. You could feel like you have the intention of, to be proactive, energetic, but at the end of the day, when you're working in a team, like not only thinking about yourself, you need to be also aware of the effect that you are causing in them as well.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of behavior that I've honestly had to sort of unlearn from consulting, because when I was in consulting, I was an individual contributor and I was expected to come in with a day one answer and, be really sure in my opinions on things and, have an answer first and then go validate it afterwards. And I'm now in a role where I have to sort of unlearn that, and I have to give others more space to develop their own approaches to things. So, as long as we're aligned on what the outcome needs to be and what the sort of deliverable is, giving others space to decide how they get there and doing things in their style rather than my style is really important.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kim.
Kim, would love to double click a bit more on your leadership style. And coming from a PM perspective, you have spoken to so many PMs all around. What is one leadership lesson that we should take away, like as PM aspirants, early career PM folks, from your experiences?
Yeah, I would say, PM is a really hard job. You have to listen to a lot of different cross-functional perspectives, a lot of people who are concerned about different parts of the release that may not feel like the most important thing to you at the time, or maybe the feedback that they are personally giving or their customers are giving you are not the answers you want to hear. So I think trying to keep an open mindset and recognize that everybody has something to bring to the table is really important. And in those moments, trying to focus on, okay, this person is really harping on, our documentation is really bad. And maybe you're really frustrated because, hey, like documentation is the last thing on my mind right now. There's like this core functionality that is not working and I need to do that. But, sort of holding both things to be true at the same time, that in the end, if you want customers to use this product, which should be your end goal, is really adoption and usage and, value for your customers, then everybody like find a way to channel that energy of that person towards something that is, productive for you and for the release. So hearing them out, letting them understand where that fits into your priorities and what you can do or what they can do to help make sure that keeps moving forward while you're focusing on something else too. So listening to cross-functional perspectives, making sure that people feel heard by you and that you're being clear with folks about what you're doing with their feedback.
And when you are taking feedback from everyone, would it take a lot of time, and how would you manage that with your deadlines in your roadmap?
Yeah, how do you manage that, that sense of urgency, and also at the same time considering,
Being open to every opinion,
yeah,
the right balance between the two.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think proactive communication is really important. So, making sure that you're having regular syncs with your cross-functional stakeholders. In our case, it's when there's something that's coming up on a deadline, it's usually weekly, and it's, sort of an open forum for questions, and the PM and the PMM are sort of there to either address a question or take an action item and drive it to the end. And so I think it's proactive communication, and it's really being focused on what is the impact here. So being able to prioritize, like having a clear, for lack of a better word, framework in your head of how many points am I going to give to this, and where does this fall in my priority list, and why, and trying to be as objective about that as possible. It may not be, you may be getting an answer that you don't really like and that it really, blows up your plans, but having an understanding of how urgent and how critical is this feedback.
Great. This was such a nice conversation. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for being so gracious with your pregnancy, with all the things that you have to lead at DocuSign, taking out the time for Hasis. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I enjoy a lot, and I'm sure you did as well, learning about many things, not only about the job by itself, but also about your journey, how everything connected from social impact, from your work, then consulting as well, MBA, and also your parenting period. I think it was a whole overview of your life. So thanks for sharing that. Thanks for coming today, Kim. We're so happy to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. It feels really special to come back and to be a part of this forum that didn't exist when I was here. So thank you both for providing this opportunity to fellow students. And it's really awesome what you're doing here. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. This is the end of the episode, and we'll come back for another one. Please hit subscribe. Please share it with your friends. And see you soon on the next one.
See you the next one. Bye-bye.
Kevin and Devansh out.